Scientific study of Vedas, creation of universe starting from BRAHMAM, class 42. Now we are going through the subject Rudra. Rudra means atom. From this atom everything is created. Rudra is the force acting at the nucleus which drives all particles to join together in such a way so as to form the atom. Then from this atom all the things in this universe are going to create. So let us go through one sutta that is in Rigveda Mandal 7, 5 of Sutta 36 and see what it says.
ഋഗ്വേദം മണ്ഡലം 7 സൂക്തം 36-5 ഋഷി വസിഷ്ഠൻ ദേവതാ വിശ്വദേവന്മാർ ഛന്ദസ് പന്തി തിഷ്ടുപ്പ് യജന്തേ അസ്യ സഖ്യം വയശ്ച നമസ്സിനാ സ്വഇർദസ്യ ധാമൻ വിപ്രക്ഷോ ബാബധേ നിർഭിസ്തവാന ഇദം നമോ രുദ്രായ പ്രേഷ്ഠം.
As per this sutta, that is Rigveda 5 of Sutta 36, it says that if we satisfy Rudra, Rudra means atom, through Stuti. Stuti means if we approach an atom scientifically, satisfy atom means we do everything as per certain science principles, based on science principles, chemistry. If we approach Rudra or atom, it will give Annam. Annam means product. What all things we require that this Indra or this Rudra or atom will give us. Because all the things in this universe came out from this Rudra or atom. There are different types of atoms. Different types of atom combining in different ratios. Different things are formed. Even human beings. All the things that came out from the combination of different types of atoms in different ratios. So we also can combine different types of atom to produce artificial rubber, silk, etc. We can produce anything. So, what are the scientific principles? Why atoms are combining? That science, the science behind it, we should understand. The basic thing is, we know atoms are made up of proton and electron. Proton and electron combine to form neutron, that is without any charge. Proton is positively charged, and in the nucleus there is proton positively charged particle. So there should be an equal number of electron with a negative charge revolving around it in different orbits. So if there is one proton in the nucleus, one electron revolves around it in the orbit. So that is one atom. If there is two proton in the nucleus, two electron revolves around it. So it forms another atom. If there is three protons in the nucleus, three electrons revolve around the nucleus and forms another atom. And likewise, a number of atoms are formed. So these atoms combine to form other things like sugar or salt or water or anything like that. All the things in this universe are formed by the combination of these atoms. Then why atoms are combining? Because we know electrons are revolving around the nucleus in special orbits, in different orbits. In each orbit, a number of atoms only can be accommodated. For example, there is some rule. In the first orbit, there should be a maximum of 2 electrons. In the second orbit, the maximum is 8. In the third orbit, it is 18. In the fourth orbit, it is 32, etc. So, if there is 12 protons in the nucleus of an atom, there are 12 electrons revolving around it. Out of these 12, 2 are in the first orbit, 8 are in the second orbit. That is the maximum number that can occupy. So 8 plus 2, 10. The remaining 2 are in the third orbit. So the outermost orbit contains 2 electrons. But there is another rule that is called octet rule. As per this rule, the maximum number of electrons in the outermost orbit is 8. Maximum number of electrons in the outermost orbit is 8. We know in the third orbit, it can occupy 18 electrons. In the second orbit, it can occupy 8. Suppose we imagine there is 20 protons in the nucleus. There are 20 electrons also revolving around it. So in the first orbit 2, second orbit 8. 2 plus 8, 10. Balance is 10 electrons. That can occupy the third orbit, because the maximum number of electrons that can occupy the third orbit is 18. So 10 can occupy. But based on this octet rule, it is the outermost orbit. If we put a 10 in the third orbit, it is the outermost orbit. It cannot exceed 8. So this, out of this 10, 8 occupies the third orbit and 2 goes to the fourth orbit. So then the outermost orbit becomes the fourth orbit. There is only 2 less than 8. Likewise, the first rule is the maximum number of electrons in the outermost orbit, that is called the valence electrons, is 8. So there is a restriction. Based on the same rule, atom should contain 8 electrons in the outermost orbit. It is essential. Atom can remain outside if there is 8 electrons in the outermost orbit. Otherwise, it cannot remain as an atom. So that is another requirement. Maximum electron is in the outermost orbit is 8, and it is essential there should be 8 electrons. But if there is 20 protons in the nucleus, there is only 20 electrons, 2 in the first, 8 in the second, so 2 plus 8 is 10. Then there is 10. 10 cannot remain in the third because it will become the last orbit. So 8 remains in the third orbit and 2 goes to the fourth orbit. The outermost orbit is less than 8, so 2. That is okay. But it cannot remain as such, because without 8 electrons in the outermost orbit, here it is only 2. So it should attract electrons from other atoms. and make it 6. Make it 8. 2 plus 6. That is not possible. No atom will give 8. Or the alternative is it should give out its electron to another atom. If it is not possible to make 8 electron in the outermost orbit, it should give out its electron. No atom can remain with less than 8 electrons. The only way is to give out that electron. So, every atom, most of the atoms are with the electrons in the outermost orbit. It is less than 8, that is okay. But it is not required a sufficient number of electrons to satisfy this condition, 8 electrons in the outermost orbit. So, every atom tries to combine with others to either to give its electron to others or to take electron from others. So, this resulted in the creation of all the things in this universe. For example, in the case of hydrogen, there is only 1 electron in the outermost orbit. It cannot remain as such. It requires 2, because the first orbit is small. In that 8 restriction is not there. 2 is enough, but 2 is a must. 2 must be there in the first orbit. And in all other, if it is the outermost orbit, hydrogen, the outermost orbit, there is only 1 orbit, that is a small orbit, and maximum occupation is 2. So in that case, 2 is enough. But in all other cases, it is required. So hydrogen possesses only 1 electron. So it requires 2. If any atom gives 1, it will accept it. Otherwise, it will give its electron to others. For example, in the case of chlorine, its outermost orbit contains 7 electrons. So it requires 1. So hydrogen gives its 1 to chlorine. So hydrogen becomes 0 electron in the outermost orbit. So condition satisfied, no less than 8. Either it should be 8 or 0. So that condition is satisfied. Fluorine requires 8, it possesses 7, and it collects from hydrogen and make it 8. So that also is satisfied. So this will go together and form hydrogen chloride. In this case of sodium, it possesses only 1 electron in the outermost orbit. It requires 7 to make it 8. No atom will give 7. At the same time, chlorine requires 1. So sodium gives 1 to chlorine. That problem is solved. So those two combine together to form together. That is sodium chloride, that is salt. Likewise, all the atom combines, gives its electron or share with it. Different types of combinations are there that we can see. Different, that is called a bonds. Different types of bonds, joining bonds due to the sharing of electron, etc. That we can see in the next coming classes. So due to this, to satisfy this octet condition rule, atoms combine to form different types of molecule, and due to this, all the things in this universe are created. So that is as per modern science. But that is also explained in Vedas in another form that we can see now. It is in Yajurveda, chapter 16, Sukta 63. It says, Rudras are of different types or atoms are of different types. Atoms are different types. If there is 1 proton in the nucleus, there is 1 electron revolving around it. that is one atom, that is hydrogen atom. If there is 2 in the proton in the nucleus, 2 electrons revolve around it, that is the second atom, that is helium atom. Likewise, hydrogen, helium, carbon, sodium, potassium, oxygen, etc. different types of atoms are there, depending on the number of protons in the nucleus or number of electrons in the outermost or in the orbits. So, Rudras are atoms are or different types. And these atoms, Rudra, control the directions, control the Dikkugal. Dikkugal means there are 8 directions, yet north, south, east, west, and in between northwest, north, south, like that. There are 8 directions around this nucleus. So, if this is the nucleus, there are 8 points, direction north, south, east, west, and diagonal wise. There are 8 direct Dikkugal or directions around this nucleus. So, all the other atoms are revolving around it. This is the outermost orbit, and the direction is on the, we are representing north, south, etc. directions on the outermost part. That is this north, south, east, west, northeast, likewise. These are points, and it controls this nucleus controls these points. And it also says this force coming out from these points should not distract us. That means there is a force acting at these points. These points and forces are called there are 8. Ashtadik Palagar. Ashtadik means 8 direction. Its lord of 8 directions or that points. So there are 8 lords in these points, and these lords are responsible for, their duty is to keep electron in these points. So, based on octet rule, 8 electron is a must in these points. So, it is the duty of these devas or gods or lord of these points to assure that things, there should be electron in that point. These lords are named as Indra, Agni or heat, Yaman, Niryadi, Varunan, air, Kuberan, and Ishan. Names of these points are the lords of these points. So, the duty of these points, these lords of these points, that is Ashtadik Palagar. Their duty is to control the activities of these electrons in this point, to make sure that there should be electron in these orbits. So it will attract electron from the other atoms and keep it in this position, or share electron between these 2 atoms. Or if it is not possible, it will give out this electron to another. This activity is resulted in the combination of atoms which resulted in the creation of all the things in this universe. So this Ashtadik Palaga, 8 direction, lots of these 8 points, that is Ashtadik Palaga, lots of those points, 8 points or 8 directions, directive points. These lots are responsible for the activity of these atoms, and by which new substances are forming. Because if there is 12 electrons in this protons in this nuclear, there are 12 electrons revolving around it. So in the first orbit there is 2, in the second 10, 8. So 2 plus 8 is 10. The balance is in the outermost orbit. So this orbit contains only 2. But it requires 6 more to make it 8. So these Ashtadik lots, these lots of these points, trying to get the electron from other atoms by different types of combinations. There are different types of bonds that we can see in the coming classes, by which they will try to get electrons in that 8 positions. If it is not possible, it will give out this electron, these 2 electrons to other atom which requires 2, 1 or 2, to satisfy their condition, that is to get 8 electrons in the outermost orbit of that electron. So in the case of sodium, there is only 1 electron in the outermost orbit. In the case of chlorine, it requires 1, it contains 7. So it gives this electron to chlorium and forming the sodium chloride or salt. Likewise. So this Ashtadik Palaga or lots of these 8 points, directions, are the same that we teach us in the modern chemistry classes, that is the octet rule. As per this octet rule, 8 electrons are required in the outermost orbit. That is, there are 8 points in the outermost orbit which occupies 8 electrons. No extra electrons is allowed in this orbit, only 8. And all these positions are to be strictly occupied by these electrons. If there is no way to satisfy this condition, then give out that electron to other atom which requires. So that strict rule is to be followed. Here also, Ashtadik Palagar 8, lots of 8 points in the outermost orbit, that is the direction. These lots are looking after the activities of these points in the atom. So in Veda, it presented in such a way, and in the modern science, it is presented in the form of octet theory. The things are the same, the rules are the same.